Welcome to the Explainer. Have you ever felt like your brain is just, well, wired to see social situations as a threat? Today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating new study that looks at the physical signature of social anxiety in the brain. And it reveals a surprising link between how we literally see the world and how we feel in it. So here's our game plan. First, we'll get clear on what we're actually talking about when we say social anxiety. Then we're going to zoom way in on the specific brain activity that researchers found. And finally, we'll pull back out to look at what these breakthroughs could mean for the future of mental health. All right, first things first. To really get what this research uncovered, we need to be super specific about the term social anxiety because, it's way more than just being a little shy.
And that is the million-dollar question, right? The condition this study zooms in on isn't just everyday nervousness, but it's not a full-blown clinical disorder either. It's this tricky middle ground that actually affects a lot of young adults.
The official name for it is subclinical social anxiety. And listen, this isn't about getting butterflies before giving a speech. We're talking about a persistent condition that causes real distress and makes everyday social interactions a genuine challenge. And here's the absolute key difference. Standard nervousness, it comes and goes. But this is a deep-seated fear of being judged. It's a fear so powerful that it can trigger physical stress and make you want to avoid social situations altogether.
So, if this is its own unique thing, how in the world can you actually see it inside the brain? Well, that's exactly what these researchers wanted to find out.
A team in China, led by Feng Huang, set out to find actual physical markers for this anxiety. They used fMRI scans, you can think of these like a heat map for brain activity, to map the brain's internal wiring and look for real, tangible differences. And their method was pretty clever. They brought in two groups, one with high social anxiety and a healthy control group. Then they scanned their brains while they were just lying there, resting. The whole idea was to see if there were any differences in their baseline spontaneous brain activity. So, after they cleaned up the data, a couple of people moved around too much. The final showdown was between 24 individuals with social anxiety and 26 healthy controls. Now, let's see what they found. Okay, now we're getting to the core discovery. This is the big aha moment of the entire study. And here it is. The researchers found the first huge clue in a pretty surprising place, the brain's visual processing center. Yeah, the part of your brain that makes sense of what your eyes are seeing. In people with social anxiety, this region was consistently hyperactive. This is really the perfect way to think about it. This hyperactivity means their brains are just constantly on high alert. It's like their visual system is working overtime, always scanning for a negative facial expression, a judgmental look, any hint of a social threat. But get this, it wasn't just one brain region going rogue. It was a whole network of scrambled connections. The visual center was talking more to the brain's emotion control center, but less to the center for physical sensation. And at the same time, it was getting a louder signal from the part of the brain tied to self-reflection. It's a total disruption in the balance between seeing, feeling, and thinking about yourself. So this is a fascinating map of brain activity, right? But the big question is still out there. How does this weird pattern actually cause the feeling of anxiety? And this is where the story gets another incredible layer. The team didn't just look at brain activity. They also looked at the physical structure of the brain itself, and they found a direct link between the physical size of that visual center and how active it was. And this leads to the ultimate plot twist, a clear three-step chain reaction. It starts with the structure, a smaller physical volume of gray matter in the visual center. Then, that smaller structure seems to overcompensate with hyperactivity. And it's that hyperactivity that directly predicts how much social anxiety a person feels. It's this beautiful, clear line from brain structure to brain function to a real-world feeling. So this is a major breakthrough, no doubt. But what does it mean for the future? And like with all good science, what were the limitations of the study? The researchers are really upfront about the limitations, which is what you want to see. The study was pretty small, and all the participants were university students around the same age. That just means we need more research before we can say this applies to everybody. So the path forward is actually really exciting. Future studies will need to follow people for years to see if these brain markers can actually predict who might develop a full-blown disorder. They'll also need to include people with all different levels of anxiety and get even more detailed brain maps. And here's why this all matters so much. Pinpointing these physical brain signatures, it isn't just an academic exercise. This could lead to early detection,
Imagine being able to identify who's at risk and maybe step in to help before the symptoms become severe.
I mean, just listen to this incredible possibility. The research suggests that one day doctors might be able to use things like non-invasive brain stimulation to literally calm down that hyperactive visual center and relieve those early symptoms. And that leaves us with a pretty mind-blowing final thought. If social anxiety starts with a visual system that's on overdrive, could the future of treatment involve retraining not just our thoughts, but the very way our brains perceive and process the social world around us? Now that is a powerful idea to think about.